My arranged marriage was with a notorious playboy. Rumor had it, he'd dated enough girls to circle the school track twice. I was prepared to be cheated on after the wedding, but unexpectedly, this renowned heartbreaker blushed the first time he saw me. I was stunned. "How have you been playing the field all these years?" He sounded awkward. "Jay, just like this. Want me to give you a demonstration?" "That really won't be necessary." I was marrying Leo in place of Olivia. Originally, such a fantastic opportunity like marrying into the fiance wouldn't have fallen to me, the illegitimate daughter. But unfortunately, Leo's reputation was just too terrible. Rumor had it he was a notorious playboy. Rumor had it he had countless ex-girlfriends. The girls he dated could supposedly circle the school track twice. Olivia, the ever-proud eldest daughter of the Whites, naturally wouldn't want such a fiancé. But the marriage alliance between two families couldn't be broken. So, I, the overlooked illegitimate daughter, was pushed forward to take Olivia's place in this marriage. Today was the day Leo and I were getting our marriage license. I sat on the living room sofa, quietly waiting for my fiancé to pick me up. I was a little nervous. I'd never actually met him. My impression of him, aside from being a playboy, was just more playboy. I imagined that a seasoned womanizer like Leo, who frequented the dating scene, would probably look unsteady on his feet, with dark circles under his eyes. Someone so drained wouldn't be very good looking, I figured. I braced myself. But when Leo appeared at the doorway, backlit by the sun, I was momentarily stunned. He wore a very simple shirt and dress pants, the tailoring smooth and sharp, making him look exceptionally tall and straight. His face was actually handsome. His skin was fair, and there were no dark circles from overindulgence under his eyes. On the contrary, his eyes were very clear. He didn't look like someone with a problematic lifestyle at all. I was hesitating whether to stand up when I heard Olivia, who had appeared behind me at some point, tease with a smile, "Lily, your fiancé is here to pick you up. Aren't you going to hurry and get your license with him?" I glanced at her. I calmly stood up and walked to Leo's side. "Shall we go?" "Okay." I walked in front. Leo always kept about half a body's length behind me, maintaining a distance that was neither too close nor too far. Several luxury cars were parked outside the main gate. I wasn't sure which one was his, so I looked back at him. "Excuse me, your car is." When I turned around, I was completely stunned. In the sunlight, the blush on Leo's cheeks was impossible to hide. Under my gaze, his earlobes slowly turned red too. It was as if he was ashamed, or perhaps embarrassed. The top of his head looked like it was about to steam. I politely averted my gaze and heard him explain guiltily, "It's too hot today." He strode ahead. He opened the back door of a Bentley and said to me, "Get in." Even as the car drove smoothly down the road, I was still wondering. Is Leo really a seasoned playboy? Getting the license was really just a formality. The agreement between two families had already been negotiated countless times. So even if the Whites swapped the bride at the last minute, at most they'd lose a few percentage points in benefits. It wouldn't threaten the structural alliance between the two families. Once the clerk stamped the little red seal, Leo and I were officially married. I looked at my newly acquired marriage certificate, sneaking a peek at my new husband beside me. I have to say, Leo's face definitely had what it takes to conquer the dating scene. Every time I looked at him, I was amazed. I believe that even if his family weren't prominent, he could still thrive among women with just that face. After all, his looks were truly stunning. Leo cleared his throat and looked over. "What's wrong?" I shook my head. "What's the next step?" "Let's go see the marital home," he said. "Some of your things have already been sent there. The housekeeper wasn't sure how to arrange some items, so you might have to do it yourself." "Okay," I replied. The speed at which the Whites kicked me out could be described as rocket fast. Olivia seemed afraid I'd back out. The moment I agreed to marry Leo in her place, she started instructing the family's housekeeper to pack my belongings. Actually, she didn't need to be so anxious. After all, in my opinion, the two-faced Lin family members were far more terrifying than Leo, who supposedly partied every night. I was even looking forward to Leo not coming home at night. The car soon drove into a villa on the hillside. Leo helped me out of the car and said, "This car will be for your use from now on. I'll send you the driver's contact information later. You can call him if you need to go anywhere." "Am I staying here tonight?" Leo, who had been striding forward, stopped and looked back at me. "If you don't stay here, where will you stay?" I pressed my lips together. "Okay." I just hadn't expected it to be so soon. We only met for the first time this morning, and tonight we were already going to live under the same roof. This speed. It was even faster than the speed at which the Whites had kicked me out. My things from the Whites were delivered one by one. With the help of the Vance's housekeeper, Mrs. Peterson, I arranged them. This unfamiliar villa gradually started to reflect my presence. But Leo had disappeared ever since he dropped me off here. Probably went to see his other girls. Regarding Leo's notorious promiscuity, I had actually prepared myself for it long ago. Among wealthy arranged marriages, cases of spouses playing around separately weren't uncommon. Although I might not have the right to play around, if Leo wanted to, I couldn't stop him. I could only prepare to be cheated on. What I could gain from this marriage was freedom. I no longer needed to walk on eggshells around the Whites, no longer needed to live in Olivia's shadow, no longer needed to be constantly on edge. This was much more important than being cheated on. As for Leo, let him do whatever he wanted. Whether it's one instance of cheating or countless, what difference did it make how many times? I lay comfortably on the soft, large bed in the bedroom, took out my phone, and replied to my best friend Frank's message. "Hee, I'm free. Frank, how does it feel to be married to a legendary playboy?" I typed. "Awesome. He actually isn't coming home, isn't that just fantastic? I can already imagine my wonderful life having this hillside mansion all to myself. Once I get settled in, sweetie, you should come live with me too. If I had to buy this house myself, I'd have to start working since the Stone Age, but now it actually belongs to me. Wow wow wow." I chatted excitedly with my best friend until 11 at night. I blissfully soaked in the luxurious, high-end bathroom, changed into a cami nightgown, and continued to roll around on the bed. I have to admit, expensive bedding really is worth the price. Just lying on it, I didn't want to get up again. I was lying there lazily with my eyes half closed when suddenly I heard a door creak. I froze and looked up. Leo, who had just pushed the door open, and I stared at each other. The room was silent for a full 5 seconds. Then I belatedly asked, "Do you live here?" Leo was even more bewildered. "Don't I live here?" Right. I gave an embarrassed laugh. I quickly sat up and straightened the bedsheets that I had messed up by rolling around. Leo walked over and explained, "I came in once while you were taking a bath. But you were probably too focused on singing and didn't hear me. So he even heard my tone-deaf singing." I closed my eyes, blushing secretly. Leo looked like he was genuinely planning to share the bed with me. He lifted the covers on the other side and sat down on the edge of the bed. As he slid his legs under the covers, he added, "A beat too late, I've already showered. In the guest bathroom. Very thoroughly." Neither of us said anything more. Sensing that Leo had lain down, I guessed he was probably ready to sleep, so I lay down too. Leo then turned off the lights. In the dim room, I could even hear Leo's light breathing beside me. How strange. Yesterday we were strangers. Today we were sharing a bed. I was still marveling at this when I heard a rustling sound. The next thing I knew, Leo was hovering over me. In the darkness, his eyes shone astonishingly bright. His voice was also very hoarse. "Honey, is this okay?" My first thought was, he's desperate. Then I thought, he really is a playboy, a collector of sorts, not even sparing his nominal wife. I was still mulling it over when he suddenly ducked his head. His heavy breathing fanned across my cheek, wet and hot. I belatedly realized this situation was actually quite critical. Just as his lips were about to touch my nose, I hurriedly stopped him. Wait. His voice trailed off, almost floating. I hesitated and then stammered, can I see your health report first? Leo deflated. It seemed to be in the literal sense. He rolled over and flopped back into his original spot, his breathing still heavy, eyes staring straight at the ceiling, lost in thought. Suddenly, he let out a very soft laugh. It was breathy. Hard to hear clearly, like a self-deprecating chuckle. The atmosphere inexplicably turned a bit awkward. I hadn't planned on saving myself or anything, after all, we were already married. It was just that things happened so suddenly, and in my panic, I blurted out what was on my mind. It was his fault for having such a messy private life. I had to protect myself, right? Originally, I thought this reason was perfectly valid. But at this moment, it inexplicably felt somewhat self-righteous. Perhaps he was just acting on a whim, not taking me seriously at all, yet here I was, making a big deal about demanding his health report. So self-righteous. I didn't want to ruin our relationship on the very first day of being married, so I explained, a beat too late. I don't mean anything else by it, don't overthink it. I also have my health report ready. If you need it, I can show it to you too. It's for health considerations, you know, I added, trying to smooth things over. Leo's laughter grew louder. As if he couldn't hold it in any longer, he didn't try to hide it, just laughed openly and clearly. His chest vibrated, the movement even reaching my side. His laughter made me feel slightly embarrassed. I even wondered, what part of this whole thing did he find so amusing? I'm clean. Leo cleared his throat, his voice now relaxed. I'll go for a checkup tomorrow. I'll give you the results as soon as they're out. Don't worry. I mumbled an agreement, feeling that he was actually quite easy to talk to. There was still a hint of laughter in his voice. Your reason is perfectly valid. After all, my reputation isn't great. Marrying me, you've been wronged. No, not at all, I quickly denied. How could I dare mention being wronged? Even Olivia herself probably wouldn't dare say she was wronged by marrying him. In the darkness, he looked at me. I haven't had a chance to ask you yet, what are your thoughts on marrying me? For a moment, I wasn't sure what he was asking. Was he asking about my view on this marriage, or my view on marrying him? It was probably the former. After all, my opinion of him was surely unimportant to him. I can accept it, so you don't need to worry about me in the future. Accept what? Now Leo was the one who didn't understand. Accept your promiscuity. I enunciated slowly, I won't interfere with you. I know I have no right to interfere either. So you can just pretend this marriage doesn't exist. Whatever it was like before, it can be like that in the future. I can accept it all. If you need me to, I can even help you. He cut me off. Leo's tone was more serious than ever. Lily, do you have any idea what you're saying? Is there a problem? The room was silent for a long time. No problem. Leo praised me, you're very magnanimous. I was about to explain when he threw back the covers, sat up, and headed straight for the door. He didn't leave without a word, though. He tossed out. I'll sleep in the guest room. I keenly sensed that Leo seemed unhappy. Leo's mood, good or bad, wasn't my concern. It was great if he was happy, but if he wasn't, there wasn't much I could do. I slept soundly until broad daylight. I received a message from my best friend. Got a money-making gig, you in? I used to work hard at part-time jobs so I could move out of the Whites' home after graduating college. But now that I owned a hillside mansion, part-time jobs weren't important anymore. I replied, hee, not doing it. Not doing any more jobs from now on. Frank, I hate rich people. I quickly typed, I'll add your name to the deed later. Her tune changed super fast. So this is what it feels like to get rich overnight? Thanks, being rich feels amazing. She made me laugh. I lingered in my room until mealtime. When I went downstairs to eat, I was pleasantly surprised to find Leo wasn't home. Mrs. Peterson, who had helped me organize my room yesterday, explained, the young master had some business. He left early this morning. I nodded slowly, not particularly concerned about it. I asked the question I cared about, will he be back tonight then? Mrs. Peterson glanced at me. Not sure, she said cautiously. But the young master rarely stays out all night. So, Leo was the homebody type of player. I inexplicably thought of last night. After a night of debauchery outside, he still had the energy to want to get with me when he came home. Truly energetic. After dinner, I watched a movie in the media room. It was an art house film recommended by my elective course professor, and it made me drowsy. When I woke up, it was already 4 in the afternoon. There was an unread message from Leo on my phone. A PDF file. It was his health report. Only then did I realize what he had been doing early in the morning. My finger hesitated, wondering whether to open it. After all, this report seemed to carry a certain special meaning, as if once I read it, something was bound to happen between us. Another message from Leo arrived. Something came up tonight, won't be home for dinner. I quickly replied, okay. He quoted the PDF file and asked me, did you look at it? Feeling like I was being forced into it, I opened the file and skimmed through it from beginning to end. Leo's health report was very detailed, even including the activity level of that thing. All indicators were healthy. There were none of the problems I had worried about. I really didn't know how to reply, so I forced myself to praise him, you're very healthy. Leo, yep, the healthy me will be home late today. Was it just my imagination? Why did I feel like he was teasing me? I really didn't know how to reply, so I exited his chat window and continued watching the movie from where I'd fallen asleep. In the evening, my best friend, who was working alone, called me. I saw your husband. Leo? I said. You've never even met him. I saw your marriage certificate, she said urgently. And people around him were calling him Mr. Vance, so I recognized him immediately. And then? He went into a private room with a woman. At this moment, I actually felt a sense of as expected reassurance. No wonder he was going to be home late. Turns out he was out looking for fun. So he went in, so what? My best friend was stunned. What do you mean? Aren't you going to go catch him in the act? It's only the second day since you got your license. That's just how he is, I don't think I have the right to control him anyway. My best friend was silent for a long time before saying, I think you should still come take a look. A second one just went in. I still didn't plan to go. After all, I felt Leo's private life was none of my business. If he wanted to play around, let him. I found him dirty, so I would just avoid physical contact with him. But even the most resolute thoughts can be violently shaken when your best friend on the other end excitedly shouts, it's the fourth one. The desire to watch the drama unfold overcame everything else. I really wanted to know just how many women Leo could summon in one night. Following the address my best friend gave me, I arrived at the private club she mentioned. My best friend gripped my wrist, looking nervous. This time, 2 went in at the same time. Huh. I was astonished. I knew he played around a lot, but I didn't expect him to play around this much. My best friend pointed out the room number, still trying to hold me back. Don't you want to prepare yourself mentally before going in? Prepare for what? To cleanse your eyes? I chuckled. Let's save the eye cleansing for after the show. The exquisite fruit platter she was holding was destined for Leo's room. I followed closely behind her. I watched her push open the door and peeked out slightly from behind her, searching for Leo in the room. Leo was currently sitting on the sofa. As if sensing something, he looked up slightly, and when our eyes met, his widened a bit. The private room didn't contain the R-rated scene I had imagined. Both parties were fully clothed, sitting properly opposite each other, with a coffee table between them. On the coffee table were some documents, looking like they were discussing serious business. My best friend was clearly surprised by this too. She quickly put down the fruit platter, head bowed, and tugged at my finger, signaling me to make a run for it. I was just about to turn when someone called out. "Since you're already here, why leave?" My face screamed, "I'm so done with this." My best friend gave me an "I can't help you with this one" look and left alone. I could only brace myself and walk to Leo's side. I didn't know what to say. Just yesterday, I had confidently declared I wouldn't interfere with him, and today I was practically catching him in the act. The speed of my own face slapping was too fast. Leo, however, didn't care about that. He just said, "Sit for a while, wait for me to finish up." He picked up the documents on the coffee table, glanced at them roughly, and said, "The total is $186,700. I'll transfer you $200,000. The contract ends here. If you agree, sign it." The young woman quickly signed her name at the end of the document. Another young woman went through the same process. I found this scene a bit strange. I couldn't see the densely packed words on the document clearly, so I could only look at Leo. "Are you dismissing your ex-girlfriends?" The girl in the yellow camisole burst out laughing. "Oh honey, we're fakes. Just for spreading rumors and stuff. We have no actual relationship with Mr. Vance." I looked at Leo, shocked and bewildered. His expression was calm. He speared a strawberry and held it to my lips. "I'll explain later." There was no need for Leo to explain. The girls who received the money excitedly shared with me. Spreading one rumor cost $10,000, and they could get a commission based on the credibility and reach of the rumor. Leo would settle the payments with them on time, as if determined to nail himself to the scumbag's pillar of shame. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Then, an even more absurd scene unfolded. Just as my best friend had reported earlier. Two young women walked out, their cheeks flushed, and immediately, two more young women walked in, beaming. This wasn't an R-rated scene at all. This was clearly a large-scale payroll settlement. The way I looked at Leo became increasingly surreal. I thought he was a playboy. Turns out, it was all an act. Even these hundreds of rumored girlfriends were hired by him. Once everything was settled, the supposedly fake playboy Leo seemed to finally feel hungry and started eating the cherry tomatoes from the fruit platter one after another. His features were handsome, his demeanor refined. Even his family background was top tier among the rich kids. Why would someone like him deliberately fabricate a promiscuous past to slander himself? Why? I thought subconsciously. It was only when Leo looked at me that I realized I had said the words out loud. It was hard to take them back. I could only wait quietly for Leo's reply. He handed me the last cherry tomato on the plate. I should have dealt with this sooner, but I've been a bit busy lately, so it dragged on until tonight. I meant, why did you pretend to have so many girlfriends? Leo pondered for a moment. I didn't want to marry Olivia. I thought about it for a few seconds and realized his method might have actually worked. Olivia had initially been very happy about the marriage alliance with Leo. It was at a dinner table, when Olivia's dad publicly announced the happy news of the union. Olivia's face at the time had a girlish coyness, full of affection and pride. But as Leo's rumored affairs increased daily, Olivia's feelings about the marriage gradually changed. She became irritable and quick to anger. She would hysterically scream at home about how they could make her marry such a man. The Lynn household knew no peace. Until this marriage was pushed onto me. Leo looked at me. "Everything's resolved now. Shall we go home?" "Okay." Just like the day we got our license, Leo always kept a not too close, not too far distance behind me. Perhaps it was because I was paying attention to him. I vaguely felt his gaze lingering on me. But when I actually looked over, I found he was just looking down at the road. Leo asked, "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I just suddenly thought of something else." If he was unwilling to marry Olivia, did that mean he was willing to marry me? My best friend's explanation for this was that he liked me. I didn't really believe it. After all, according to her, 8 out of 10 men liked me. I could only assume I was Leo's second best option. Since he didn't want to marry Olivia, and the marriage between the two families couldn't be called off, then marrying me was the only choice, right? My advantages compared to Olivia were timid, laid back, indecisive, submissive. All my flaws would become advantages as a marriage partner, because it meant I was easy to control. As it turned out, Leo seemed genuinely pleased with me. He would tell Mrs. Peterson to prepare food I liked. He would also patiently tell me about the recreational facilities in the villa or nearby, afraid I'd be bored. He even checked in with me daily. What he was doing, what time he'd be home, his schedule, I knew every little detail. This was far from the arranged marriage I had initially envisioned. I thought Leo and I would keep out of each other's way. After all, he was a playboy, loved to have fun, and would definitely not be home much. I'd be free and easy at home alone, doing whatever I wanted. Who knew his whole persona was fake? Now he came home every day, and we'd stare at each other at a set time daily. Occasionally, if he couldn't find me, he'd search the entire villa just to see what I was doing at that moment. In the Whites, I was an invisible nobody. Suddenly becoming so noticeable, I felt a bit out of sorts. Fortunately, though Leo was enthusiastic, he hadn't made any further moves on me. No physical contact. Our relationship was as pure as that of roommates. But tonight was a bit of an exception. My roommate, Leo, got drunk. His friend brought him home and even explained, he accidentally had a couple too many. Please bear with him, Lily. I was forced to help Leo to his room. Drunk Leo was surprisingly steady on his feet. I had thought it would be a difficult journey, but he seemed somewhat lucid and didn't cause me too much trouble. Leo collapsed onto the bed. As I turned to get him some water, he grabbed my wrist. He mumbled uncomfortably, "Hot." I puffed out my cheeks, hesitating whether to help him take off his very figure-flattering shirt. Leo was still whining, uncomfortable. I pressed my lips together and stepped forward, calmly starting to unbutton his collar, one button after another. Leo, who had been whimpering non-stop, suddenly glanced at me. I explained, a beat too late, "I'm not trying to molest you. You said you were hot, so I'm helping you unbutton your shirt." Leo probably didn't understand and started complaining about the heat again. I unbuttoned his shirt faster. Without even waiting for me, Leo sat up on his own, pulled his shirt out from his pants, and with a simple tug, the remaining 2 buttons popped off. He just sat there on the edge of the bed, his chest bare. His skin was fair with a rosy hue, quite attractive. The lines of his abs rose and fell with his breathing, and combined with his handsome, refined face, every image before my eyes became a catalyst for my racing heart. I suddenly felt it was wrong to stare like this, a bit like taking advantage of him. I looked away. Then Leo grabbed my wrist again, forcibly pressing my palm against his abs, making me feel his scorching temperature. "I really am hot," Leo said, his eyes hazy. I humored him. The heat from his skin was too intense, I couldn't stand it and instinctively curled my fingers. Leo suddenly let out a muffled groan. This situation was even more critical than the night we got our license. I was contemplating whether to give in when Leo looked at me, his face flushed crimson. "Lily, I've never been in a relationship." I looked at him, puzzled. "Why are you bringing this up? All those rumors were fake. Actually, I'm not very good at interacting with girls. Besides playing games in kindergarten, I've never even held hands with anyone. I'm not dirty." I struggled to keep my composure and respond. "Today is the first time anyone has touched me like this." He looked at me with his captivating eyes. "Lily, you touched me. You have to take responsibility for me." Probably out of bewilderment, I actually argued with a drunkard. "But you're the one who grabbed my hand and made me touch you." Leo directly took my hand and started caressing his bare chest with it. "You're my wife, you can touch me however you want." He said, "I'm yours." Under my palm, his heart was beating vigorously. I unconsciously met Leo's gaze. Clear, limpid. He seemed sober again. So tonight, this was. I suddenly couldn't face it anymore, pushed him away with one hand, and fled his room. I don't know how Leo spent the night, but it was pretty rough for me. I suspected he was pretending to be drunk. But I couldn't find a reason for him to fake it. If he wanted to take things further with me, he could have just said so. I wouldn't have refused. But with him pulling this stunt, I really couldn't understand what he meant. I pondered it until midnight, and by the time I got up the next day, it was already 10 o'clock. I slowly went downstairs and was surprised to see Leo there. Meeting my questioning gaze, he explained, "I'm on vacation today." Oh. Actually, I didn't know much about Leo's work. I only knew he currently worked at his family's company. The fiance business was huge, so he must be very busy. It wasn't until I sat down for breakfast that Leo further explained. "I'm going back to the Whites with you today." A mouthful of milk got stuck in my throat. I coughed a few times before looking at him. "How did you know I was going back to?" He pulled out a tissue and handed it to me. "Mom called me too. We're husband and wife now, it's normal for us to go home together." It felt so strange hearing him call my mom so familiarly. I could only agree. Thinking about my situation at the Whites, I added an explanation. "I'm not very favored in the Whites. If they treat you poorly in any way, it's because you're associated with me. Don't overthink it." There was actual sympathy in Leo's eyes. Why would I overthink it? For some reason, I didn't dare look into his eyes anymore. After all, if I looked any longer, I would start to overthink. On the way to the Whites' home, Leo and I sat at opposite ends of the Bentley, both silent. My mom had called me 3 days ago to tell me to come back to the Lynn house. Her intention was for me to bring Leo along. How could a married couple not even return home after getting their license? But I had never thought of bringing Leo. The Whites was a mess, why drag him into that muddy water? But at this moment, Leo was sitting right beside me. He seemed to have something on his mind too, silent for a long time before asking, "Last night, I didn't do anything I shouldn't have, did I?" I deliberately tried to smooth things over. "No, you were quite well behaved when you were drunk." I didn't say anything out of line either. What kind of talk counts as out of line? Like, he paused for a moment before saying, "Talk about responsibility, for example." My heart skipped a beat. I suddenly realized he wasn't worried. He was testing me. He clearly wanted to know my opinion on what he said last night. I beat around the bush. "Of course, you should be responsible. We're husband and wife, I'll be responsible for you." Leo chuckled softly, as if laughing at me. Coward. Half a month later. Being in the Whites' villa again, I had a surreal, dream-like feeling. But unlike before, they were very enthusiastic towards me this time. It was unprecedented enthusiasm. Asking if I was warm enough, if I had eaten, showing utmost care. Just like how parents should treat their daughter. I soon understood it was all for Leo's sake. I felt a bit pathetic. Then I quickly got over it. After all, my parents were like this, I shouldn't have expected anything from them in the first place. The harmonious atmosphere continued at the dinner table. I peacefully played the role of the invisible person, eating, while listening to Leo make small talk with them. Work has been a bit busy lately, I'll spend more time with Lily in the future. Huh, that's good, that's good. You can't always be busy with work, young people still need to take care of their health. Exactly, Olivia's voice suddenly cut into the harmonious notes. Leo, you two are already married. You can't be like before, okay? She sounded like a strict older sister, standing up for me. If you're out there painting the town red and making my sister suffer, I'll hold you accountable. I subconsciously looked at Olivia. I knew very well she wasn't speaking up for me, she was just enjoying the show. She was proud of herself for getting rid of the burden that was Leo, and conveniently dumping him on me. So she postured as a victor in front of me. even lecturing my husband. I instinctively defended him. How he is none of your concern. I'm helping you, why are you talking like that? Olivia said with a slight pout, been a young mistress for a few days and you can't even tell good intentions from bad? Or perhaps, you just like being cheated on. I was about to retort when Leo pressed the back of my hand. He chuckled softly and explained to everyone, actually, all those past romantic escapades were fabricated by me, I paid people to make them up. What? There was a bit of a personal reason for it, I guess. Leo said, so everyone doesn't need to worry about me making Lily suffer. I like her very much, I'm very satisfied with her, and I'll treat her well in the future. Who would believe that kind of talk now? Olivia's tone was sharp. Hilarious, who would just make up lies to harm themselves for no reason? Me. Leo admitted it so openly. If I didn't make up lies, wouldn't I have had to marry you? He looked at Olivia and scoffed, thankfully. You. Olivia's cheeks turned red with anger. She scanned the dinner table, but at this moment, no one spoke up for her. Furious, she slammed her bowl down and left. I looked at Leo, who remained calm. I inexplicably felt a bit satisfied. On the way back, I thanked Leo seriously. Thank you for helping me out during dinner. He was surprised. Wasn't I helping myself out? I smiled and explained, actually, Olivia was targeting me. If it weren't for me, she wouldn't have said those things to you. Leo blinked. Has it always been like this? Has she always treated you this way in the Whites? I had no intention of recounting my past miseries, so I just stated the fact, actually, I'm an illegitimate daughter. Her father, who is also my father, had an affair with my mother while married, and then I was born. I looked at Leo uncertainly. So I can actually understand why she dislikes me. After all, my mom and I destroyed her family. But what does that have to do with you? Leo said, what does the older generation's wrongdoing have to do with you? Did you really want to live in such a family? He hit the nail on the head. Growing up, I had wished countless times that I wasn't a daughter of the Whites. Those two from the Whites just let her. Leo didn't finish his sentence, but I understood completely. I opened my mouth to explain, my dad prefers her, and so does my mom. Your biological mom? Biological mom. Leo let out a sarcastic laugh, dripping with disdain. When I was little, I also couldn't understand why my own biological parents treated Olivia better than me. Did you figure it out later? I shook my head. But things I could never understand before, I kind of get them a little now. For my mom, being nice to Olivia was her way of showing loyalty to Olivia's dad. She wanted to secure her position. She thought Olivia would speak up for her. I added, actually, Olivia really detests both me and my mother. Leo frowned deeply. Don't mind her. Once the floodgates opened, I inexplicably wanted to confide. Growing up, Olivia always loved to take my things. Even if she had everything, even if she lacked nothing, she still wanted what I had. I smiled faintly. At first, I would feel wronged, I would cry, I would go to my mom to seek fairness. Slowly, I stopped doing that. Leo, Because it was useless. I said, Olivia didn't actually want my things. She just wanted to see me cry and make a fuss. So she stole your marriage prospect just to see you cry and make a fuss? What marriage prospect? I looked at him blankly. Are you talking about our marriage? This should be something she didn't want, so it fell to me. No. Leo said, the person I was initially set to marry was you. This marriage was originally yours. For a moment, it felt like I was hearing some kind of fantasy. The person originally supposed to marry into the fiance was me? How was that possible? Putting aside other factors, could my status as an illegitimate daughter even match up with this young master of the fiance standing before me? Leo gave a helpless smile. What nonsense are you thinking? I only ever planned to marry you. I was still stunned. He explained what happened back then, I told your father very clearly that the person I wanted to marry was you. And he agreed at the time. Who would have thought that on the day of the public announcement, the marriage partner would change to Olivia? I pressed my lips together. I realized Olivia had once again snatched something of mine behind my back. Perhaps because this had happened too many times, I didn't even feel much anger anymore. Looking at Leo before me, a possibility suddenly occurred to me. So that's why you pretended to be a playboy, to get her to back out? Yes. He said, although it was a bit troublesome, after all the twists and turns, it still came back to what I originally wanted. Why? I mumbled subconsciously. Leo had a slightly frustrated expression on his face. Lily, am I not making it obvious enough? Alright, it seems it really wasn't obvious enough. My bad. He said, I like you. From the moment I saw you in the rose garden, I liked you. It was a cliché love at first sight story. But Leo's narration made the story interesting. It was a very mystical feeling, I still can't describe it. The first time I saw you, I was a little jealous of the flowers in your hand. Flowers? I was confused. The flowers could be held by you, caressed by you, sniffed by you, but I couldn't. I looked in amazement at his currently blushing face. I know this thought is very strange, he said, but I really want to be possessed by you. Growing up, I had been confessed to by many boys. Everyone expressed their affection differently, but most would include the line, be my girlfriend. But this was the first time. Someone said to me, I want to be possessed by you. The change in subjective position brought an uncontrollable tremor to my heart. I looked at Leo at this moment. His face was handsome, his expression shy. I want to become your possession, I can't wait to be labeled as yours, I want to be tied to you, in any way. So you arranged the marriage? Yes, he said. If we had confirmed it back then, we wouldn't have been able to get the license yet. Even now, I was only a year past the legal marriage age. Everything is heaven's arrangement, Leo said. Although there were some surprises, I was destined to be legally possessed by you. He asked me softly, are you willing? I subconsciously changed the subject. We're already married, I already possess you. I'm asking about your heart. I looked at Leo, troubled. My mind was muddled, I didn't even understand what I was trying to express. Growing up, I've always had very few things. Even those few things would be snatched away by Olivia, every single thing I liked. I won't be snatched away. I will always be yours. Although Olivia is a big problem, I have my own issues too. I won't fight for things, I feel like I've lost the ability to compete with her. Under Leo's intense gaze, I added, I only know how to yield. There's no question of yielding. Leo's tone was firm. I was originally yours. If I don't belong to you, then I don't want to belong to anyone. He said, if you don't want me, I'll go die. I stared at him quietly for a few seconds, finally hearing the voice in my heart clearly. This, I thought, is what I need. A love where I am always chosen, steadfastly. He won't be snatched away, he belongs only to me. Even if he doesn't belong to me, he won't belong to anyone else. Can you keep your word? He gently embraced me, honey, just watch my actions from now on. My relationship with Leo progressed rapidly. If someone had told me half a month ago that I would go from holding hands, hugging, kissing, to sleeping with a man all in one day, I would have thought it absurd. But this absurd thing was now actually happening. Leo was currently buried in my neck, sobbing softly. His tears brushed against my skin, a little wet and hot, a little itchy. What are you crying about? It feels a bit like a dream, his voice was a little hoarse. I rolled my eyes in exasperation. Just now when I asked you to stop and you wouldn't, why didn't you say you were dreaming then? Leo held me tightly with both arms, shamelessly playing cute. Honey, you completely possess me now. I humored him. If I was somewhat moved when I first heard this sentence, now I just felt numb. After all, anyone would get tired of hearing possessed 20 or 30 times a day. But Leo didn't get tired of it. While nuzzling me, he played with the ends of my hair with his fingertips. Honey, can you make our relationship official on your social media? I'm only a junior in college and already married. It doesn't sound too good if it gets out, does it? You'll be a senior when school starts. I still didn't want to. After all, getting married while in college was quite embarrassing for me. If I hadn't been forced into it by my family, I wouldn't have done something so crazy. I could only turn the question back to him. Then why don't you make it official? Can I? Leo's eyes lit up like a puppy's. I'll do it right now. He even had the photo of our marriage certificate saved in his album, taken long ago. He posted the photo as is, with the caption, Lilies. I teased him, why don't I just get a seal engraved and stamp it on you? Can I? He hugged me again. I want it. Thank you, honey. I had indeed underestimated the thickness of this man's skin. I couldn't quite handle Leo now that he had completely let loose. If before he was just doing what an arranged marriage husband should do, then now he wasn't even pretending anymore, directly transforming into a clingy puppy, never settling down for a moment. My best friend was also surprised by our progress. To this, I could only say, we're already married, there's nothing else I can do. Did you even try to do anything? She looked at me sideways. You surrendered faster than he confessed. I really didn't struggle much. Living under someone else's roof in the Whites had cultivated my go-with-the-flow personality. I wasn't very good at resisting anymore. Leo liked me, so let him like me. I also quite wanted to see if he could do what he said he would. You two are really... My best friend laughed and cursed, every pot has its lid. You two are locked in. I calmly accepted my best friend's teasing. When I got home from my gathering, Leo came up to me with eager eyes. You haven't paid attention to me for 3 hours. You can't be this clingy. I pushed him away. I start school in 10 days. What will you do then? Can't I live at home? He asked sincerely. I remember your school allows sophomores to rent off campus. It was allowed, but I didn't really want to. I really couldn't handle Leo. I made an excuse. Please give me a complete college experience, okay? All right. Leo answered dejectedly, then you have to come home often, and you have to let me visit you at your school. I patted his head. You're really like a puppy like this. He nuzzled his head against me. Always wifey's little puppy. He coaxed me until my heart bloomed with joy. Just as I was marveling at how Leo quite fit my expectations for a partner, he suddenly swept me up in his arms. The feeling of being suspended wasn't pleasant. I clung to him tightly in fear. His voice was low and hoarse. There are only 10 days left. I have to seize every second. I can't take it anymore.